Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Season 6 of Bosch. I'm going to let you know ahead of time, I'm going to be jumping straight into spoilers, so if you have not seen all of Season 6 of Bosch, do not listen to this. You will get spoiled, so you have been warned. So, going forward, how do I feel about it in general? I thought this was a great season. It's actually interesting because obviously, like, a lot of storylines didn't play out the way I thought they would. Let's kind of break a lot of this down because there's a lot to break down about this season. First and foremost, the main overarching case. I thought it was interesting, going into this season, knowing it had to deal with like nuclear material. Like obviously Stanley's death was just a precursor to the nuclear material. And I was like, man, this story ended up not being what I thought it would, because at first I was like, wow, this is so interesting. Like Bosch having such a big story like this where someone's stealing nuclear materials and like terrorism. And it kind of plays into that story in a different way than they initially thought it would. And that was the whole situation of basically at first it seems like everything's pointing to these people who are sovereigners that basically are like, oh, we don't recognize kind of like law, we don't pay taxes and stuff like that. It's an interesting like subset group of people. We deal with one particular family, kind of almost like cell. They're known as like the 308s. So we kind of deal with them. It seems like they're responsible for Stanley's death. I kind of had a feeling like the wife Alicia was kind of lying, just because I thought it was weird. Like the fact is that when you're like, out of any place they could have left you, why leave you in your place? Like, wouldn't that be the first place people would look? Like, I would think they put you in a neutral location. To me, that was kind of already like a little like suspicious, but I was like, maybe I'm overthinking it. Then it turns out, there's evidence point to the fact that she's super shady. I'm like, come, I should have trusted my gut. I just had a feeling like it just, why leave a hostage somewhere that someone could come looking for her easily, being like, oh, here's the house. But maybe it's the thing of like, if you overthink it, it's like, oh, well, where's the last place you'll look? It's the actual house, because what, it's just, and the fact that she was laying on a bed too, I'm like, that didn't seem like the type of thing that, once again, I'm not a criminal, so I wouldn't know, but it didn't line up in my head immediately. But I was like I said, in the beginning, I thought I was overthinking it, but I thought it was actually kind of interesting how that ended up playing out over the course of the season. Like obviously investigating this, looking at the 308s, and just like obviously what was Holmes' dude's name? Travis. He's the one that pulled the gun on the cops and stuff like that. To be fair, that was 100% Maxwell's fault. And I thought this is so interesting. Like when the time came to, it's like, okay, like Alicia is the number one suspect behind all this. She's got to have like someone behind this. I was like, oh, it's got to be Maxwell. I was like, it obviously explains why he was so gung-ho and everything. It's got to be Maxwell. Then it was Brenner. I was like, oh shit. I was like, okay, I guess I was completely wrong about Maxwell. Then again, I was like, nope, apparently I wasn't wrong. I was like, I love how the show kept messing with me, because I was like, oh, I think I'm right about this. Oh, I guess I'm wrong. Nope, I was right. Why did I doubt myself? Because I was like, because like I said, it seemed like it was Maxwell from the beginning, just because it was like, it would justify why he was so gung-ho. Like obviously they're going to justify it by being like, oh, we're FBI, and the fact of the matter is this is potentially a terrorist plot. We got nuclear materials out there and stuff like that, and it's understandable. But also like he was the one that was so damn adamant about it being like the sovereigns and being the 308. So it was like he was being very heavy-handed with the whole situation. I should also point out, it's interesting, his partner is Reese. His partner Reese is played by Julianne Emery from she played Featherstone in Preacher. I was like, I didn't recognize that was her from the trailer until I saw it. I was like, oh my God, it's so it's crazy to see her go from Featherstone to this. I mean, I don't know if she's done anything in between Preacher and this, but like, that was just it's kind of a weird thing, because it's like you went from one specific suit to a different suit. I don't know, it just kind of got me giddy. I was like, Featherstone, that's so cool. But nevertheless, I was curious too, like if anything about Eleanor was ever going to come up. It comes up a little bit, but I was wondering if it was going to be like plot heavy stuff. It's like, no, because of course working with the FBI, which I talked about this in the trailer. I can't remember if I kept it in or not. I remember talking about it. I don't know if I kept it in the final cut, but I love when like that happens in shows, like, oh, fucking FBI's here stepping in our investigation. Even at one point, Reese is like, stay in your lane. It's like, oh, they're traffic cops now telling us to stay in. And I love Maxwell says something, Bosch stopped and turned to him. I'm like, in that moment, I was like, it's one of those things of freezing where it'd be like, and this is the moment where Maxwell realized he fucked up. I just love it. It was just that moment of like, you don't want to piss off Bosch. Don't do that. That's stupid. Why'd you have to run your damn mouth from Maxwell? It's like, yeah, Reese said something snarky, but you went too far. You should have just shut your damn mouth. Nevertheless, once again, that's probably the reason why he was kind of acting like that was because of the whole Alicia situation. There was also part of me wondering, was Reese behind it too? Just like the whole showdown with Maxwell. I was like, but I guess it's just a hard thing of like, hey, I had to put my partner down. I didn't see my partner for who they really were. The fact is that they manipulated this whole situation. What I thought was also beautiful about the whole sovereign situation too was the fact is that Alicia's lawyer, it's like, Manko's like, yeah, her lawyer's there. It's like, yeah, bring him back. I was like, is it gonna be who I think it is? And lo and behold, who steps in? None other than Honey, aka Munley Shanter. I'm like, of course. And even Bosch and Jerry looking like, what the fuck? I was like, of course. It's so interesting because it has to be the back and forth between her and Bosch. They were literally side by side last season. Granted, she kind of did some shit that Bosch wasn't too happy about, but they were pretty much copacetic last season. Now they're at odds, which is obviously adds a complicated element to it, because the fact is Maddie's working with her and everything too, and even Maddie later on having to excuse herself for working with him because it's like, well, I kind of did some shady shit for you last season, and now that you and my dad are on opposite sides, which even that turns into a complicated thing because Bosch is like, oh, Chandler, she's good at what she does. That's why I hired her. But the fact of the matter is she helps bad people get, out of justice, which obviously Maddie's like, even at one point snapping at Bosch, is like, oh, when she's working for other people, she's bad. But when she's working for you, she's cool. So it's just, they have a different stance on it. Because I think Bosch just looks at her as a lawyer who gets bad people off. It's like, because to be fair, when he looks back on everything that happened with him, like she's kind of screwed him over twice over the course of the series. Yeah, she helped him out last time, but it doesn't take away from all the griminess of just like the shady shit that she does. It's her job as, a defense attorney. So it's like, it's the thing is you kind of pick your clients, but the fact that she picks fights like this where it's like, it's a complicated thing of like, you're supposed to go into treating it like your client isn't guilty, but it's still just, it just rubs Bosch the wrong way, obviously. Especially because let's not forget, she's also the one that threw his mom's business out there in the courtroom, made it not just like courtroom knowledge, it became public knowledge, the whole thing about his mom being... So like obviously like Chandler's always going to rub him the wrong way, he's always going to have a little bit of a gripe with her, but even then, they do have moments of acting very professional around each other in any regard. Because I even love that line between them where she was like, oh, the fact of the matter is this isn't personal for me like it is for you. Like the reason why like he takes like, like this whole his cases and stuff like that personal, but like for Bosch, he's like, maybe that is the issue. The fact is that you don't like that everything is simply a job that you, because Bosch invests himself in any case that he does, trying to get justice for people. So like he kind of puts his heart out there when it comes to these cases. He puts himself out there. Whereas for Chandler, it's more of a thing of like, it's a job. I do what I got to do. I am, I'm kind of the same way with anyone, whether they're guilty or not. And for Bosch, it's like if you put a little more heart into it, put a little more humanity behind your work, and rather than just being like, it is what it is, it's a job, and just treating it like, I think that's just, I just thought that was kind of an insightful moment between the two of them in that regard. But I'm surprised more ramifications didn't blow back on like Alicia because of all of this. I should also side note, because I brought up, I think, one of those other instances I talked about of like Chandler screwing over Bosch is the whole, what is it? It's Veronica, right? It was Jerry Ryan's character, because she popped up, wasn't it? She pops up in one episode, last episode. She's only in it for like maybe 10 seconds. She's in one episode last season for like 10 seconds. That was it. But like the moment like Chandler started representing Alicia, I was like, oh, this is going to be that Veronica situation all over again. Then obviously worked out a little bit differently, but the point was like Alicia and everything her and Maxwell did literally set off the series of events where it put the Sovereigns in the both the FBI and Homicide's purview, and that led to things playing out the way they did, and it kind of made them kind of ramp up, being like, they were already very ramped up, they had a whole bunch of guns anyway, but this was kind of like the powder keg. This was the ignition to a powder keg that was already set, so it's like more, I feel like more should have kind of fallen on them. And obviously because Chandler cuts a deal, like she was only going to have to go away for 2 years for like conspiracy and stuff like that, but like not being directly involved, like, because obviously she gets to point the finger at Maxwell, say that he was guilty and everything, in the grand scheme of things. But still, it's sucky how that kind of ended up, playing out. And obviously because for Bosch, he's like, he knows, like, I know she's guilty of sin, but he can't prove it. Even during the court, it became a whole thing of like, oh, maybe Bosch, Chandler doing her thing. And once again, you can't deny it. Chandler, she's really good at what she does. So the fact of the matter is she's trying to twist everything. Guys, like, because I like how they kind of compare. Like, it's so interesting because the judge that Bosch went to for the the warrant for this whole Alicia situation, the wiretap and everything, the same judge he went to last season when Home Dude tried to like besmirch his name and say like, oh, you got the wrong person and everything. So it's interesting that like Chandler's here again, but I guess it's like, obviously you're going to be in different judges' courtrooms and stuff like that. But she has to be like, oh yeah, like Bosch kind of misled you in the information he gave you under the circumstances of this warrant and stuff like that. Saying, basically trying to throw out the warrant, saying it was kind of given under, like saying like he gave you the wrong information to give him the warrant that let him do what he did. So basically throwing out everything they acquired from her, like her texts, her conversations that Beryl and Crate were listening in on. It was a really interesting turn of, like the case kept, I was actually kind of surprised, like, because like the case actually gets resolved before the season's even over, and then like the tail end, like the very end of the season, it's kind of concluding it. But obviously all the other Sovereign stuff kind of piles on top of it, because they were kind of secretly kind of working behind the scenes the entire time. Because it's interesting because like we find out about, what was his name, Craver. That's the dude that Maxwell, well, it's actually Brenner CI, but it was Maxwell was like, oh, he's Craver's the one that pointed them towards the 308s in the first place. But then we find out like, oh, did Maxwell kill him? But it turns out Maxwell didn't kill him. It turns out Travis did. Now that in turn explains why Travis was so nervous when the cops were there. It wasn't just about them arresting his brother because he thought they were there. He was kind of right. They were there for him, just not under the circumstances he thought. Like, because he had already murdered Craver, so he was thinking like, oh my God, they know it's me, so that's why he kind of went like that. Which obviously causes his wife, blanking on her name, Heather. Yeah, Heather made her kind of go buck wild because she's like, oh, so adamant about going after them because it's like, oh, they took away my husband and they trampled on kind of our freedom and stuff like that, their perspective in this whole situation. So kind of radicalized her. They were already very radicalized. Like I said, things were already in emotions. It was just this ended up shifting things and probably escalating things faster than maybe they were going to plan on. I mean, who knows what their original plan was? Once again, they had like a full-blown arsenal and stuff like that in their attic and everything. So who knows like what the tides of the case would have, like where things would have really turned about, in the grand scheme of things. I thought it was interesting, like, because like we get little details about the whole Alicia situation at the end of the season, but we don't get the full scale of scope of like what exactly, because like basically Chandler's chances of getting like the wiretap thrown out were already slim, but she was still spinning it her way. But the judge ended up deciding not to go down Chandler's route, so the wiretap stays in. So Alicia's kind of setting in stone the fact that things are kind of screwed for Alicia, because basically she's the one that insinuated that they used Stan's gun against him. Because it was kind of interesting because the entire time it's like, because I thought it was interesting because the whole thing was meant to make it look like, because I guess that's why like Maxwell was also in such a rush, because he didn't know where the material was, because Stanley never told him, because it was supposed to be an insurance policy. Unfortunately for all of them, they didn't know that Stanley had set up this whole thing with a private investigator looking to his wife, because he thought his wife was having an affair. She super was. Who know that affair would come to kind of bite you in the ass the way it did. I mean, to be fair, sadly, you watch enough crime shows, which my mom watches a lot of like true crime shows about. There's plenty of like shows on ID about like affairs and stuff like this coming back to bite someone in the ass and you getting murdered because of it. So should have seen it coming type of situation, but you get what I'm trying to say. But it was just a wild as case, like I said, for it to start off making it seem like it was such a big thing, and then for it all to kind of trickle back down to be like, oh, it was actually just kind of like a very personal, it was about money, it was about love, it was both. I thought that was kind of fascinating. But because like basically I thought what's interesting when it got revealed, because there was that whole thing of like at the beginning where she was like, oh yeah, like I was in the science field, but I kind of backed away from it and everything like that. It's because she's actually super rich, because she patented what was it, like a specific, like wasn't it like a medical sponge or some shit like that? She patented that, and she got a whole bunch of money, but there was a prenup signed ahead of time, and basically like because they've been married more than 5 years, the rights to that patent are 50-50 for them. So he's entitled to like half her money. But like basically because of the prenup and everything, like she couldn't get that 50% back in any shape or form. So she basically set this all up. The whole point was like to make it, force his hand to be like, hey, sign over those rights and stuff like that, or they were going to blackmail him because he had very like his perspective on things. He had a very like he kind of leaned more towards like kind of the sovereign's point of view. So they were going to paint him in that direction to be like, oh, are you going to believe a guy with beliefs very similar to a radical group, even faking ties to it, or a trusted FBI agent is how they were going to spin it. Maxwell kind of paints it to like, oh, like the reason why Stanley ended up, or at least how it gets painted is like, Alicia says that Stanley, like, it was out of self-defense, the reason why Maxwell killed him. We never actually got to see the whole thing go down, like, because like the intro of the episode kicked in, and like obviously when we cut back to the episode, it's already kind of been dealt with. Like Stanley's already dead. We never got to see that ensuing incident of just like what exactly went down. It could have just been straight up Maxwell decided to kill him, but it's like, why would you? It's like I said, I think that's why he kind of was as crazy about it, because they set this whole thing up, but they didn't realize Stanley was going to hide the nuclear material. So it was a thing of like, we actually do need to get it back. But I guess in the grand scheme of things, it kind of helped their narrative and their story anyway in the grand scheme of things. It was really interesting, the perspective Maddie ended up kind of getting from all of this, because she's decided that she's going to go into law enforcement. That was kind of an angle she was already kind of going down. Because it turns out like her mom was going to go down that route of law, but the FBI kind of picked her up first. But so Maddie's kind of following in both her parents' footsteps law-wise, but also, law enforcement-wise to a certain extent. But for her, she wants to be a prosecutor and not a defense attorney, like it made it seem like she would want to be. But she's going to continue studying with Honey, because it's like, if you want to be a good prosecutor, she needs to be able to think like a good defense attorney. So like learning all she can from Chandler, so it could, so it's interesting, because obviously for Maddie, she was unsure where she wanted to, handle things in her life. But I think after seeing everything go down in the courtroom at the end of the series, at the end of the season, I think that's what kind of made her mind up, because at the, because she kept asking like, oh, what do you think? But, for Bosch, it's like, you have to make that choice. Because for him, he's like, you have choices. I didn't. I mean, his life is what led him to be where he is. Everything with his mom, going to the military, being a detective now, like all that was because of his life and everything. And it's like, Maddie, you're in a very good position where you can actually make choices yourself. That choices don't have to kind of be made for you because of everything that went down in your life. Your life doesn't have to define you in such a point. You get to decide, who you get to be and what you do for your life. So I thought that was just kind of an interesting aspect of that. Obviously we see that she has like she has a new boyfriend. I'm blanking on his name. Sad to see that things never went back to working out between her and Home Dude last season. I guess it's just kind of like, well, it's kind of like it complicates things, because she even talks to her boyfriend about it this season. I thought it was kind of adorable. She's the one that kind of it's like, oh, like, yeah, like I listened to Fred Morgan, and then Bosch is like, you mean Frank Morgan? And it's like, oh, I was like, oh, you're trying to get some brownie points, but it kind of screws you over. It's like, he's like, honestly, I've never heard of Frank Morgan, so I try to Google him really quickly. And it's like, yeah, this beer you ordered, it's a beer I like. Maddie's the one that suggested that, didn't she? He's like, yeah, and Home Dude was like, yeah, I'm just not really good at small talk. He's like, actually, good, because I don't trust anyone that is. So they ended up hitting it off and stuff like that. I even love her being like ordering a drink and just like, oh, can I see some ID? And she's like, yeah, no, I left it in the car, but my dad will vouch for me. She looks at him, and Bosch is just looking back at her. She's like, I'll just have a Coke. And he's like, yeah, nice try. I thought that was just moments like that is kind of, adorable in the grand scheme of things. Obviously, another big angle to this season is the whole situation with Jerry trying to handle the whole Avril situation. First and foremost, the whole thing with Arias and Marcos getting popped like that. I figured as much when Marvel and Winston rolled up on him, like, oh, this ain't going to be good. And then like straight up shot him in the face. And the effed up thing is there were so many damn witnesses, but it's a community where it's like, ain't nobody talking to the damn cops about that. So, and obviously like Jerry and IA were investigating them, but it's like, I guess they were already suspicious, because I was wondering, because it seemed like, I guess because they made it seem like, oh, there's no like, window back to them, it's like zero. And then obviously Winston was like, we don't believe in zero, like you saying that, we don't believe you, like zero doesn't exist. So obviously there is some exposure on our part, but it's like, oh, now it's zero now that you two are dead. So especially because you can tell one of them was kind of nervous. Some dude kept circling them with his bike and stuff like that, and it made them one of them super nervous. I was like, it seemed like that was about to be a hit type of situation. So obviously all like Jerry's attempts to go after Avril, especially because he learned from like one of his cousins, is like, yeah, you said your dad killed my uncle, right? Well, I talked to one of my cousins, your dad wasn't even in the country at that time, meaning you're the one that killed my uncle. Because he tried to paint it last season like, oh yeah, that wasn't the one, the one that killed your uncle. That wasn't me. That was that was my dad. But it's like, no. So, and I like what was that line? Because it was a line from the trailer I really liked, where it's like Avril talked about like a man that's angry. There's plenty of men in this world that are angry, seeking vengeance, and Jerry was like, yeah, I'm one of them. Also, really quickly, just kind of be on a little lighthearted. I love the whole him and Bennett dating thing. Side note, I'm blanking on her name. That's the actress from Real Husbands of Hollywood. I kept looking, I was like, isn't that her? I looked into it, totally is her. I was like, that's so dope. Because in the show she has like shorter hair, she has longer hair in this. But I love that like him and Bosch having that conversation about like, you should be dating a cop. He's like, my rule, never date any cops, which even Jerry calls him out for his BS, because it's like, we as the audience have already seen you get screwed over by the fact that you've dated cops in the past. So far in the show, it's screwed him over at least twice that we're aware of. That turned into a whole complicated thing for Billets as well, but we'll kind of get to her situation much later on. But and I even love he brings it up to Mank, and Mank is like, oh yeah, I've got a rule about that. Harry's like, never date a cop, and Hank is like, Mank is like, date only cops. You're the only one that be able to kind of deal with all of this bullshit, So I just thought that was neat. And even later on, being like, oh, things are getting serious between you. It's like, do you even know her? Like, you don't even call her by do you call her by her first name or middle name or something like that? And Harry's messing with him, being like, it's Joan, by the way. He's like, fuck you. And I'm just like, I love that everyone's go-to, like that cop thing between each other. Fuck you. No, fuck you. I don't know why. It's funny that's just kind of the natural response of, nah, fuck you. So I know, really quickly, this is kind of in the back of my mind. I don't think I realized it until now, because like obviously Harry talked about it earlier in the series that like they took his life and kind of made it into like a movie, so he kind of gets residuals from that. I didn't realize. I think you see one of the movie posters. I don't know how many movies that were made, but it's called The Black Echo. That's one of the books that this series, that like the Harry Bosch novels that this series is based off of. I want to say that's the first novel, isn't it? Because I've never looked into the novels until recently when I did a video about it. There are currently 22 novels in that series, which I was like, that's fucking gnarly. But nevertheless, I thought that was just interesting. I want to say that poster is supposed to be the first book, but like that might be the more recent book. I can't remember, like I said. Especially like the cover of it and everything, like the poster for it, it's like, oh, it's the cover of one of the books, I think. Regardless, like I said, it's definitely a book reference, but I didn't get it at the time. It's probably been there the entire time, but like I just happened to notice it this season in one shot, and I was like, oh, like, regardless. But getting back with it, the fact is Jerry's working with Charlie, the DEA agent that they met last season, and he's trying to get in close with both, because he has a CI, and it turns out to be Winston, which we immediately go like, Winston's the one that killed Arias and Marco. So it's like, why is he that's why I was like, I don't get that. Like, but it's like he's not letting Avril know about Charlie. That's what I thought was interesting. I was like, huh. So I was like, are you like double dipping this situation? I was like, that's interesting. Because he didn't turn on them until Charlie started pushing him to be like, either you kind of make this thing happen, or it's going to be curtains for you type of situation. So that's what eventually led to him finally telling Avril, Jacques, the truth about everything. Which is like, it's like, oh, like he's like, I just found out. It's like, oh, you just found out. But even Avril kind of called him up and it was like, oh, you're taking advantage of this situation because it benefits you, doesn't it? So obviously Jerry kept asking about the guy that killed Arias and Marcos, and then, Avril gives him, because obviously he's kind of being like, oh yeah, like, some shady guy. He uses what's Charlie's undercover name? It wasn't it like Felix something, Marizama or something like that. It's like, yeah, this guy came into my life. He wants some criminal stuff, and it's like, oh. And even later on, they're trying to figure out, it's like, why would he knows who Charlie really is. He knows that he must know that Charlie's a DEA, so why keep up the appearances? It's like, more so to F with us. It's kind of a middle finger of like, oh, I know what you're up to, but I'm going to continue playing this game. It's like, that dude is one manipulative SOB. Even Charlie's like, the fact of the matter is, be careful around that mother effer, because he's one devilish dude. because it turns out like now it's like, you know, Charlie's like, my damn CI is the one that popped your cop. So it's like the whole thing just blew up in their faces like that, because it's now like the person you were using as a CI must have ratted you out, and he's also the one that you've been looking for the entire time. He's known the entire time, but he's been trying to take advantage of the situation, because Avril was talking about the fact is, you thought I was weak. So I guess that's why, because Winston figured he could, you know, probably keep doing his business while also taking Avril out of the picture, because it's like, he's kind of like, once he's kind of removed, I kind of do my thing. Maybe that, I don't know. We never really got a full explanation of why Winston was going along with what Charlie wanted. Like, he could have had this, like, Avril's back the entire time, but it's like, no, he was trying to screw over Avril until it was no longer advantageous for him, you know, so that's why he turned on Charlie and them. So, and even things kind of playing out the way they did at the end, because it's like, basically because of the deal that Avril made to make it so that they took down Winston and Marvel, meant that the U.S. and the police, nor the FBI or the DA or whatever, no one could come after him for right now. They kind of had to back away because he's got friends in high places and connections and stuff like that. Because it turns out, maybe they brought this up last season, but I think they really made a point of bringing it up this season, that he was a cop himself. He was secret police back in Haiti and stuff like that. So he probably knows exactly what to do to kind of worm his way around it. And just that smile, and it's just like, he's literally a devil in a suit. And it's just like, you're just like, oh, you just like, oh, someone take this bastard down. And the sad thing is, SOB kind of gets away with everything later on, because literally while he's helping Jerry take care of this whole situation with Marvel and Winston, he sent Remy to take care of Dwight, because Dwight was investigating things on his own, because, you know, it's been 11 months with this whole Gary situation, and they were no closer. It's like, you claimed you were close because you were getting Arias and Marcos, because they would have flipped, but they were taken care of, and now we're back to square one with this whole situation. And it's just, Dwight was just, he couldn't sit idly by anymore. It's like he needed to kind of do something. He you know, probably sitting on the sidelines made him feel useless. So luckily he gave Jerry some of the breaks he needed in the case, but in the grand scheme of things, it played out like this. He had left a letter, he had left a note for Jerry, because he had a feeling like this might be eventually, you know, coming with them cleaning house like that and everything. And that situation at the very end I thought was kind of interesting, because because at first, like, you know, Bosch is like, after the Dwight situation, he was like, let RHD handle it. And he's like, would you? And Bosch didn't say anything. And Jerry's kind of like, yeah, I thought, like, I've been with you long enough, partner. Like, there's no way you'd sit idly by with something personal like this, because he was telling Jerry, like, don't. Because I think for him, it's like, because Bosch has gone down that lane. He knows what kind of a good guy Jerry is. He doesn't want Jerry to kind of, you know, it's like Bosch always makes sure never to cross that line. And obviously, you know, he's, like I said, I've talked about it recently, like, he's in that gray area, but he never crosses that line. He doesn't want Jerry to kind of get even that close to that blurred line, and even going as far as crossing it like that, you know. So, but when the time came and Jerry explains the whole Remy situation, the Remy and Avril situation, I was like, that's got to be 100% BS, right? It seems like no. I mean, the fact is, we kind of see what is believed to be like the real truth of the situation. It seems like majority of what he says is true, because basically Remy did come there to kill Avril, because he knew, like, oh, Avril's cleaning house. He turned on Winston and Marvel, because he probably didn't know about that while Avril was having him kill Dwight. It's like, wait, they're taking care of it. It's like, oh, he'll get rid of anyone that's a loose end. Dwight was a loose end. Those two cops were a loose end. Like, I might be one. I don't know. Not less that's maybe that, like I said, the way the story goes down, it seems like everything up to like the very end of that confrontation with Avril was true. It's only till the very end that he lied. Because even Bosch was like, I know what you had planned. Like, if Remy had showed up, what your plan was, because you don't leave your phone home by accident. You left it. You only leave it behind when you don't want to have a digital trail. And he's like, I don't know what to tell you, Harry. Like, I just left my phone back home. And he's like, okay, partner. He wasn't trying to push it too much, but it's just like I forgot what the exact wording was that the note from Dwight. It was basically about like kind of not giving into that, you know, darkness, and Jerry had kind of given into it, because we see at the end, like, Avril was lowering because he made it seem like Avril lowered his hands, and like, oh, I thought he was going to shoot me because the gun was still in his hands. It was, but Avril didn't lower his hands. He just smiled, and Jerry just couldn't take it anymore and popped him. twice, you know, so. And now the fact is, Jerry's got to live with the fact is that he did that. Like, yeah, Abra was a bad guy, but it's still, he ended up crossing a line. I don't think even he, you know, we don't know what the true cost of that will be. Like, the fact is that he crossed such a line and what that kind of means for him. Obviously, another aspect of this season was the whole Daisy and Elizabeth situation. Obviously, looking into Daisy's case, I was actually surprised because I didn't realize until like we find out later on that, like, for one, it, like, we see Elizabeth. She seems like she's good and she's working, and she sees a dude. And side note, what was the kid's name? Alex Sands, the actor who plays him. I've seen him. I think the most recent thing I saw him in was The Rook. He was one of the twins. I'm blanking on her name. They're those four that are telepathically connected. He was one of the twins. Regardless, but the fact of the matter is, well, he might have been playing both twins. Because didn't the twins look different? Like, I don't think they were identical. They were identical twins. So he definitely probably played both. Regardless, I was going off on a tangent, stuff like that. I apologize. When Elizabeth saw him and he was looking at that little kid, I thought, I was like, oh, is this like a pervert dude or something she's about to contact the cops about? But she calls up Harry, and I was like, oh, this is present day. I was thinking maybe this was something in the past, like, but no, she had gotten clean, and Harry let her know that he was looking into Daisy's case. And obviously that's something he was doing, like, kind of burning the midnight oil, not only working on this whole Kent case, but also Daisy's case as well. And obviously it took him different places. Basically, we ended up finding out that Daisy and Alex were running scams, like, on the streets. Like, basically, they were lure Johns in. Like, she'd get all close to them, pretend like they're about to have sex. He'd bust out, have a recording of them, as well as, like, their ID, and scam them for money and stuff like that. That was their racket. And even the fact is, Alex didn't come forward all those years, like 10 years ago, about this whole situation. It's like, a lot of people, because basically at the time they believed Daisy's murder was connected to a butcher. He was like a serial killer at the time, but it turns out like her case just kind of got lumped in there because it's had a lot of the same hallmarks. But eventually her case kind of fell to the wayside because it's like, oh, it has nothing to do with the butcher case. Plus she was some girl on the street, so she took less priority and stuff like that. So, and sadly, it just seemed like she kind of fell to the wayside for a lot of people. And the sad thing is, like, Elizabeth seemed like she was doing so good. Like, she was struggling, but, luckily Harry was there throughout it all. I don't know if Harry really talked too much about his, like, because she was wondering, like, if he'd, she even asked about the fact is, like, she hadn't dreamed about Daisy in such a long time because she's like, I used to dream about her all the time. He's like, do you remember your dreams? And he didn't want to tell her about the nightmare he had about, like, all those dead bodies. He had, Daisy was there in his dream, and then he looked down on the slab, and before he even pulled the back to blink, I was like, it's going to be Maddie, isn't it? And it's like Maddie with her throat slit because, like, Maddie, when he looks at Daisy, because even Maddie had brought it up, it's like, when you look at Elizabeth and her mom, when you look at Elizabeth and Daisy, do you see you and your mom? And she was like, kind of like, what? And I was like, I think so. But the point I was going to make is, I don't know if Harry ever confided in Elizabeth about, like, knowing exactly what she was going through, like having lost someone, like, not just the Eleanor situation, having, like, seen someone you cared about murdered, but also, like, the struggle. Like, it never came up communication wise, because even last season he never brought it up. I guess for him it's like, I don't want to be that type of person, because I guess for him maybe it seems manipulative to use his own tragedy to try and ease her pain. I mean, who knows? Maybe in that 11 months we don't know the full scope of everything, so maybe he did talk to her about it, but it never came up conversation wise this season. So that makes me wonder why he never, because they had a kinship in that, but I guess maybe it's something painful that he did. It's like, not his pain isn't going to nullify her pain. Nothing he does is going to, like, ease anything. But when they actually do catch the guy, it turns out he was a crime scene cleaner, and basically he was going to let things go. Because basically his thing isn't about killing girls, it's about taking them and then selling them. Daisy was the one exception, because apparently Daisy had a knife, and he was like, I was defending myself. And, Bosch is like, oh, defending yourself by slicing her throat, huh? Yeah, that's really defending yourself. And basically cut off the cameras to the interview and being like, I want you to know that I'll be waiting for you. I'm just waiting for you to get out, and I'm waiting for you to fuck up, and I'll be there, So... Because the sad thing is they had to make a deal with him to find out all the other girls. There was at least 3 girls he had sold, because he was still doing this. And, fortunately they were able to save 3 girls, but it didn't, obviously, because for Elizabeth, it is a thing of like, at the very least, Daisy would want like there to be other girls saved in it, not just to be about her. But it's still a hard pill to swallow when you're like, wait, the guy that killed my baby is only going to get 11 years at most. And, you know, it's like, how much of that will he actually serve? And Bosch didn't answer her because that probably meant like, that meant like he probably could have gotten even less. Like he might have only seen like maybe 8 of those 11 years, something like that, you know? And sadly, you know, Bosch ends up finding her, and she had, you know, not just overdosed. Like, it's not like she did drugs. Like, she took a whole bunch of pills and killed herself. And it's just like, it breaks your heart. Because there's no happy ending to that story, you know? At the end of the day, it's like, you know, to be fair, she had her demons long before Bosch met her. But I think for him, he was like what Maddie had said. I think when he looked at her in particular, it made him think of him and his mom. And I think, you know, he's like, I think that's what, you know, definitely because he found a kindred spirit too, because she was in the military as well, which he had military experience. So it's like all her demons and stuff like that. Bosch understood. Harry has plenty of demons of his own. And I think he was hoping that he could help her fight her demons. But, you know, because even she said, like, even last season being kind of like that, she was a lost cause, that even if there's no saving her, and it's sad to see it kind of play out that way, that, you know, it's like at the end of the day, he couldn't save her, and that's just kind of like heartbreaking. And obviously, like, I think he paid for, you know, for her funeral and everything, her casket, getting a flag from her because she had military experience, and it seems like she's buried right next to Daisy, because he was going to bring her that picture of Daisy, but he replaces the flowers on her grave and puts the picture there. So it's just like, it's a sad ending. Like, there's no winners in that situation. You kind of walk away from it all just being like sad. You know, it's just like, Jesus, you were hoping for a victory, but it's like, that's like that very like noir. Like I said, it just seems like such a noir thing of just being like, yeah, you know, just more sad endings. You know, it's just kind of like, Jesus, you were hoping at least a little uplifting, but it's like, nah. It's just to show the middle finger to you, to be like, ugh, gut punch, you know, type of thing. So I wish things had played out a little bit differently in that story. Well, a lot differently. Another interesting aspect to this season was the whole Billets and Cooper thing. I love that turned into like a whole back and forth. It's like, oh, Irving came to see you. It's like, oh yeah, Irving. Because I love that whole thing about Irving's like when it came to Bosch and everything, and he was like, where the fuck have you been? Because he's like, tell Bosch to give you up to dates all the time, but Bosch kind of fell through on that part. And so Cooper took it as offense. Oh, why didn't he come see me? It's like, oh, he asked for you, but you weren't here. He's like, oh, I wasn't. But then like it turns into the same back and forth of like Harry and Jerry were looking into something, and it's like, oh, Cooper told you about this, right? And Billets was like, yeah, I was just double down, you know, confirming and stuff like that. I'm like, he didn't tell you, did? It's like, what is this little back and forth? Even later on, Irving putting he's like the initiative that he's starting, what was it, safe sidewalks, basically like Billets was going to handle one angle of it, and I love Cooper being like, oh, like I actually was going to put someone else on that front. And then like I love Irving gives him this look like, I didn't ask you who the fuck you wanted, I said who the fuck is going to be. Like he gave him that type of look, which I'm like, once again, Lance Reddick, he always plays those very imposing people. I'm sure in real life he's the nicest person, but they always make him play like stern, like, motherfucker, what'd you say? Like he's always got that look to him. Like no matter what I've seen him in, whether it's this, whether it's Fringe, he's always kind of got that essence about him, and it's such an interesting, you know, thing. Like I think the most lighthearted thing I've ever seen him in was a Key and Peele sketch. Lance Reddick is the best. Let's just leave it at that, you know. But nevertheless, the Billet situation gets messy because, like, apparently she gets very affectionate. I mean, I would want to go back and rewatch earlier seasons to see if she's like that with anyone. But the fact is, she's fixing Pierce's tie and stuff like that. And it's like, oh, she's like, I would never do that. Do what? Fix your fucking tie. But obviously, like, Cooper is like, oh, who are you talking about? Like, oh, like, she has boundary issues. He's like, my cousin, sir. Yeah, gets a little too touchy-feely. And I was like, oh, she's kind of avoiding it. Basically, she was venting to Pierce about it. And like every time it would come up and everything, she'd get a little pissed more and more, to the point she was saying something under her breath. Billets was like, what'd you say? She's like, nothing. You know, I'll get right on it. It's like, I was like, why is that such a problem for you, Vega? But then it's like, I guess it's understandable. It's like, I guess maybe just who she is personally. She doesn't like that whole thing about like, side note, like they also brought up the fact that Pierce is married. Had I don't remember that coming up in previous seasons. Maybe it did. Because it's like, oh yeah, my wife knows the password to my phone and stuff like that. I was like, have they ever mentioned the fact is that Pierce is married? I don't remember that. But whatever the case may be. But Cooper, Pierce went to Cooper. I was like, the moment he did, I was like, you literally went to the worst damn person you could have in the situation. I was like, I get it. He's the higher superior. He's the captain and everything. But part of me is like, why the fuck didn't you talk to Mank? Talk to Mank first. Like, then he'll probably give you a little more clarity on what you should do. And, but even Vega was like, no, like when Cooper brought her in there, she was like, no, it didn't go down like that. And then he's looking through the book for sexual harassment shit. And you're like, oh, this is going to get nasty. And then when the time came, like all of them are getting notices about it. And it's like, obviously Pierce is very by the book. It's like when my, partner vented me about some stuff, like he's from a standpoint, he's kind of like, he's supposed to say something, so he did, but he didn't want to make it into a big thing. Vegas sure as hell didn't, because she knew this was going to screw over her career and stuff like that. Obviously, it turns into a complicated thing because, hey, Billets had a relationship with an officer. It screwed her over in the past because that relationship that went down in season 1 obviously turned to a nasty thing. Like, we came into the aftermath in season 2, if I remember correctly, so it's like, that played out the way it did. She suffered some ramifications for it. This would have turned into an even nastier situation. And even Billets is like, Cooper, do you have an issue with me? And he's like, no, why would you think that? She's like, I don't know, there's something here, like, do you have a problem with me? And he's like, but do you think you might be happier somewhere else? She's like, no, I'm happy here. And he's like, well, it's all good then. It's like, and then eventually it's like, her and Mank are talking about it later on. Cooper got slapped hard because of that report about their numbers being fluffed that she gave to Anderson last season. She's suffering the ramifications for it because Cooper knows. He doesn't have any proof, but he has a feeling the only people who knew the truth about it was Thorne, Cooper, and Billets. She's the only one that could have ratted it out because Thorne got some days, and obviously, like, apparently Cooper got his ass handed to him for this. So this was kind of like payback. It never got fully resolved, so let's not forget, this is definitely something that could continue in the future. It could get real nasty. And obviously, Vega, it's like, we're good, Captain. And she's like, no, we're good. But it's like, oh, that's still going to be a stinging type of situation going forward. Like, so it's going to be curious. I'm curious to see kind of how that potentially might play out. Like, that potentially sets up some interesting stuff going forward. And then finally, another kind of big storyline going on this season is obviously Irving running for mayor. He's up against... I forgot the lady's name that he's up against, but then there's the dude who was like basically he's a car salesman. And obviously, Irving tried to make it pretty clear from the beginning, like, oh, like, we're going to get in these donors. I'm going to get this dude to back me up, but I don't want it to be a type of thing of like, oh, it's a pro quo, like, oh, we pay this money now, but you scratch our backs later on. It's like, no, I'm not indebted to anyone. I'm going to handle things my way, which Jen was like, I get it. He's like, no, I want you to understand this loud and clear. She's like, I got it. Trying to handle things his way, because obviously he's got that safe sidewalk initiative that, because it was his approach to the whole homeless situation, which you can kind of understand, like, his perspective on that thing, because obviously it's been something like, in LA that's been an issue for a very long time, and obviously it's like there's no one fit all type of situation, with no one solution fit all type of situation. And so basically he was trying to put more police forces on it, but the thing is that once you do that, people are just going to, like, even if you take down and try and, like, move people into shelters and stuff like that, you can't force them to. It might be a situation that they might go for a little bit, or they might not go at all, because it actually ties into crates and barrels situation. There's that dude, what was his name, Teddy, who killed that other dude over his spot. It's like, once again, it's so interesting how small stories, that was a one-off thing last season that came back and it played into this bigger role of, like, this whole situation, because the car salesman dude was trying to, like, attack Irving on this point of, like, oh, this is his perspective, but it doesn't work in the long run. And it's just like he's trying to do almost kind of like that pseudo kind thing of, like, bless his heart and everything he's trying to do, but like, honestly, this ain't the way. It's kind of like trying to, like, try and say something like, "Oh, I'm being nice about this," while secretly I'm actually giving you the middle finger type of thing of like. It was an interesting situation. At the same time, he's also dealing the fact is that June, it's like she's pregnant, and it's like, well, I guess nothing's foolproof. And for him, it's like, well, he and her might grow up. I'm old enough to be his or her, grandfather. And she's like, I think he'll be okay. And like, and you can tell that side of him kicks in because it's like, he never thought he'd be a parent again after losing George. It's like he lost his one son, but now it's like maybe now he has an opportunity. It's not going to make up for the fact that George is going. Even visiting George this season, being like, I wish you were here by my side during all of this. It's like. But maybe in his eyes, he's thinking maybe a little bit of George kind of will live on through his son, So, and at the same time, like, what's his name? As they call it, was the name Reno? That was an interesting thing because like the whole him and Beryl situation where Beryl and him were, going back and forth because we got introduced to, wasn't Reno? Like, didn't we get him? Had he popped up prior to season 5? Because the case that was like being used to get Bosch last season, the whole thing with that dude trying to say like DNA exonerated himself, it was a whole conspiracy thing. Like the dude that knew that case, who gave Harry his files and stuff last season. That actor, I've seen him in so many things, but was that the first time he'd ever popped up in the show? I feel like he might have popped up earlier, but I just don't remember. But to see him kind of back and having heart issues, and it hit Beryl because it's like, we're kind of the same, we're kind of old school. The fact is, if this hit him, maybe this could hit me. It kind of puts your life a little bit in perspective, and it's like, being there for him is like, no, you need to change up your diet, you need to change your habits and stuff like that. But sadly, he ended up dying anyway. He ended up having another heart attack and ended up passing. And obviously, it hit Beryl pretty hard, because like I said, I think it kind of put things in perspective for him. But it's interesting how that story plays out because Melissa gave him a tape. That tape has to deal with one of his old cases, and that case is connected to someone else who was kind of an academy cadet at the time, who was with some people who did a drive-by shooting. It was some friends of his who turned out to be gangbangers, but he didn't know that that's what they were doing, so he was a complicit in it. But his dad is Bill Franks, and so Bill had Irving step down there and cut off the interrogation and stuff like that. And obviously Beryl's in this complicated position because like Irving did what he needed to do, and obviously because of where Frank's Jr. is, his dad's name is Bill. I'm going by their last name, calling him Frank Jr. Is now he did a lot of good because he was like, because of that situation, because of the chance Irving gave me, I never stepped on that lane again. Like I've done nothing but good because I wanted to make sure he made the right decision, putting himself in that position for me. And even Beryl's like, I know it's like for him, it's like, I can't. Like the fact is, he doesn't have anything against Irving because for him it's like this could be used against the chief, and especially used against him in the race right now. It's like because they recognize he's good for being mayor. Like they need someone like him in that position and stuff like that. And then Kratos is like, you could just always destroy it, but he's like, I can't do that because Melissa would want to hold on to this. So when the time came, like he was trying to tell Melissa nothing was on it, but Melissa was like, no, I want it back. It's something with my dad's voice on it. But then, like, it turns out later on, Melissa gave it to Scott Anderson because she's trying to burn Irving, because she kind of blames Irving for, like, oh, her dad took a certain position and he was not home a lot. And so he kind of put work above them and, like, put it before her and the family and stuff. So she blames Irving for the position that her dad was in. But it's like her dad asked him for that position. He tried to explain that to her, but she was very resentful, and it's just kind of sadly showing that Beryl had to give it back to her. And it's just like, first Anderson's like, oh, like I'm gonna hand this over to my editor. If you don't, like, he's like, oh, you're gonna need someone, a press secretary type of situation. So do you understand me? And it's like, go ahead and give it to your editor, and walks away. And I'm like, Scott Anderson, it's like, once again, you're one of those people. It's like, oh, you're kind of a good guy. Oh, you're kind of a d-bag. Like, you're trying to manipulate this situation to put yourself in a more favorable position. It's like, you can do so much good, but he's always aiming for the story. Oh, got to get the story. And it's just like, you're literally trying to blackmail him, and then literally the other dude running for mayor ends up doing the same, because it turns out like Anderson went to him because it's like, oh, if I can't get it from Irving, I'll back this other horse to get what I want. And so Irving's like, I can arrest you for blackmailing me. But he's like, yeah, but if you do that, it's just going to look like you're trying to cover up all this dirt that I have on you. So it's not going to look good on you. So it's like, why don't you bow out the race and back me, say that it's all about your family. You can fight basically, and, you can, keep on being chief for like another term, and you can fight for all that shit that you care about. And he's like, and that is, and Home Dude doesn't know, because he's like, oh, you say all that, but you don't know what it is exactly that I am fighting for, you piece of crap. And it's just kind of like, at the end of the day, like Irving was struggling with it, but for him, the whole situation actually gave him clarity, because he does want to because at the end he ends up bowing out of the race, and he ends up giving support to the lady that's running his, like, see, because we need, I want to give my support to the first Latina mayor, and everything. So it was to counteract the dude who was trying to blackmail him, because it was like, for one, it's like giving into his demands shows that he isn't right for this job. And even if it means he has to back away from it, as long as it means Home Dude isn't going to win, like for Irving, he felt like this was the right thing to do, because, he's like, he's happy because he felt it was the right thing to do, because it's like, at least this way he does have more time, with June and the baby coming up and everything. So I thought that was just kind of a sad situation that it played out like that. I mean, I guess because like the thing is, Home Dude can't release that stuff now, because if he does, he comes off looking vindictive of like, oh, you're going after the guy that gave his support to the other person. It's like, isn't that kind of shitty? You're going after the guy that dropped out the race. And this also means it gives Irving an opportunity to come after him for blackmail and stuff like that. So it was just kind of an interesting element to see that story end up kind of playing out. I'm kind of curious like where that might, go going forward, Bosch has been renewed for a 7th and final season. It's definitely going to be interesting to see what they have planned. Like, obviously, like, most of the loose ends have been tied up. Like I said, like the whole Billets, Vega, Pierce, and Cooper situation. That could be something. The Irving situation. But, like, case-wise, like, all that's kind of been settled. I'm curious to see what the 7th case is going to look like. I mean, because obviously, like, it's interesting because I've never read the books, but it's interesting, like, Harry isn't always a detective in the books. Like, he's actually different job positions, having different partners. So I think a set number of the books is where these stories kind of get pulled from. But I'm curious to see, are there going to be... I mean, it's interesting to think about that, considering, like I said, the books are still well going on. But once again, I don't know, like, 100% of, like, where the books stand in comparison to the story. I figure we're only covering a fraction of the stories that are in the books, because I don't know whether the books are kind of the same thing, where it's like one season is an entire story. So have we only covered 7 of the 20-some books, or is it kind of a mix and match where they take a little bit from here and there of every book? That's what I'm curious about, to kind of see where things kind of go. I'm also curious to see if like Chandler and Bosch are going to cross paths again next season, because like obviously we're going to be closing a lot of storylines with this being the final season and everything. So it's going to be interesting to see kind of, like I said, what kind of case they end up going up against, because it might be like a much bigger one. I mean, hell, what does that look like at the end of it all? Like, what does that look for Bosch? Is it going to end with him quitting and being a detective and finding his way into some other line of work? Like I said, because I can't remember, because like I said, I was looking at different stuff, but there are moments in the show, in the books, where he is retired. Like, because like if you look on Wikipedia, there's actually kind of a thing that kind of tells you like, oh, Harry's partner in that story and in that book and his status, and like I know some of those storylines he retired and stuff like that. So that it might kind of see the end of that. I mean, not unless they decide to handle the series a little differently. Like, I mean, you never know with a final season. It can always be like and the main character's dead. No, that's not too much of a stretch. But also, like I said, where's Jerry going to go? Like, obviously, he knows what went down between him and Avril. The fact is, Bosch does too. So it's a thing of like, it's so interesting because Harry got his revenge, but the guy responsible for his mom's death is locked up. Whereas Jerry ended up exacting revenge on a guy he wanted to go after, who took care of Gary, took out Dwight, left Gary's mom and Dwight's wife like all alone because she has no one. She only has the people from her church to rely on. So, but now that's going to haunt Jerry going forward. And what kind of story that means for him in the long run is definitely going to be interesting. Now that I'm even thinking about it, like obviously the Sovereign situation kind of got played out, but even like, because that was surprising because I thought Heather would have killed herself at the end just to kind of be a martyr and stuff like that, but she's not dead, she's still alive. So this Sovereign thing could still be a thing next season, like, because this was like one sale of many, so next season could really see a ramp up. I mean, in fact, that could be that might have been like this might have been the startup of a much bigger arc that this turns into next season. Maybe not, like I said, in the grand scheme of things, we'll ultimately have to wait and see, how everything, ultimately gets played out. I'm very interested to see what they do have planned for a 7th and final season. But really, that's all I want to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.